Hello, I think now it's 1 o'clock. We can start. A lot of attendees are still here. That's good. Hello, my name is Sibylle Moll. I'm head of cybersecurity propositions at Demovo, and a warm welcome to our webinar series, NIS2, how to prepare your organization within 90 days. I hope you did your homework because the next tasks are around the corner. Now, today we have the second out of 3 sprints that will enable you to meet the NIS2 directive requirements. Today we will focus on 3 topics: risk management, vulnerability handling and disclosures, and third-party risk management. And as an ICT integrator, we would like to empower you with the knowledge that you will really meet the requirements of NIS2. And I'm very delighted to introduce Andrew Hay, CISO at Demovo and very well experienced cybersecurity expert. And he will guide us through the next 30 minutes. And as always, we appreciate having an interactive session, so please raise your questions in the question section. And after the session, we will give you answers. I think that's all.
Hopefully.
Up to you. Go for it, Andrew.
All right. Hello, everyone. As Sibylle said, my name is Andrew Hay. I am the CISO here at Demovo. I've been doing security for a number of years in various leadership roles across various companies. I infrequently blog. I've written a number of books, and I also lift heavy things and yell at people to play rugby better than they should be. So with that, we do have a poll that I wanted to put out there just to see how people were feeling about their comfort level around vulnerability disclosure requirements, because I know there's a lot of maybe not necessarily confusion, but perhaps misunderstanding around the disclosure requirements as they pertain to NIS2. So if you could answer the poll, it should be up on your screen there. So far, the results are going roughly the way I thought they would be. All right. So as you can see, 33% of you are very comfortable. More half are not comfortable at all, and 17%. Yes, there are specific requirements as they pertain to NIS2, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in depth. It shouldn't be anything that you need to worry about, but again, we will go through it. All right, oops, of course, I hit the button. All right, so just a introduction / recap of the approach that we're following for this 90-day project. We're taking this bucket approach where the first day or the first 30 days, we had a number of tasks that we wanted to complete or at least start. Then this is the phase we're in now. The next 30 days, we're in the green bucket phase. And then finally the blue bucket phase, which is the final 30 days. And within those 90 days, regardless of when you start, I'm confident that you can get prepared and well along your way towards being aligned with the NIS2 requirements, instead of waiting until the last minute to do it right before October. So last time we spoke about security policies, security hygiene and training, and regular assessments. You'll see that there is some overlap between the first 30 days and the current bucket that we're going to be speaking about, because security policies, like I said last time, they lay the foundation of everything that we need for our security program, and we're going to build upon that as well. So this second bucket, so risk management, vulnerability handling and disclosures, and third-party risk management. So what we want to accomplish in this next 30 days in the green bucket phase, we want to be able to measure and prioritize organizational risk. We want to understand and manage the vulnerability lifecycle. And then we want to not only learn how to assess a third-party provider or vendor, but also be part of their supply chain as we answer questions for their third-party vendor management program. So risk management, and you will notice that these slides are a bit text heavy, but I tried to put as much information as possible for later reference. So when we're talking about identifying risks, we want to be able to identify those threats, vulnerabilities that could adversely affect our assets. And when I say assets, I mean data, hardware, software, ongoing operations. So this is everything from your office location to your backup systems. Vulnerabilities could be weak passwords, outdated software, unencrypted data. There are a seemingly endless number of vulnerabilities that introduce or are introduced by threats or taken advantage of by threats. And those threats would be malware, ransomware, phishing attacks, insider threats. There's, if you think of it as though assets are what you're trying to protect, vulnerabilities are the little holes that are poked in your defenses, and then the threats are those actors or software that are trying to take advantage and exploit those holes. You can see that they're all tied together. So the risk analysis and assessment is what we really need to do. So just having your risks identified, definitely the first phase, but a lot of people don't know where to start. So, and it may seem like a daunting task because you're looking at your complete organization and you're trying to define the scope of your risk program. So this is why you will typically undergo an IT risk assessment. And this is something that many regulated industries, many financial services companies have grown accustomed to doing on an annual or semi-annual basis, just so that they can identify their assets and start evaluating the ongoing risk scores and levels across all of those assets. The main goal of this is to help you make those informed decisions without having to worry about where everything is, because you'll have a running catalog of things that you are assigning risk to. So when you're conducting an IT risk assessment, you're identifying those assets, you're identifying the threats that could potentially disrupt how those assets are meant to work, vulnerabilities that could be exploited by threats, the overall impact. So what would happen if a flood happened in your data center? Evaluating the risk. So, okay, well, how probable or how likely is it that this is going to happen every 1,000 years or every 100 years? Then risk mitigation strategies. Okay, well, what do we have to do to prevent floods? Hey, let's raise the data center a full floor. Not something you're probably going to do, but that would be a mitigation strategy. And then you're documenting and reporting everything so that you can go back and measure how you've done over the course of this program. Now, calculating risk, everyone has different methodologies and numbers. I like to start people off with the 5x5 matrix, where we have the likelihood of an incident or of a risk occurring, and then the overall severity of that risk. So you'll hear likelihood described as probability, but if you think of it 1 to 5 as rare, very unlikely to happen, unlikely, moderate, likely, and almost certain, something that's going to happen all the time. For example, if your data center is located right next to a volcano that is active, you would probably want to say that the likelihood is almost certain that, or at least likely, that there may be an adverse event that affects that data center. Now, on the other axis, we have severity. You'll hear this referred to as impact or consequence, and it's how severe or impactful a risk could be to the organization. So if you think 1 to 5, again, insignificant, it won't cause any issues, minor, significant, major, severe. If we're talking about that volcano, if lava is not one of your mitigation strategies, or the prevention of lava taking down your data center is not something that you plan for, I would say that it would result in a very severe reaction or event for your data center. So what we do in this matrix is we create, one side 1 to 5, one side 1 to 5, and then we use the formula. So we just multiply the severity by the likelihood. So if you want to really break it down into acceptable, adequate, tolerable, and unacceptable, 1 to 3 would be acceptable. So you can say as a business, no further action is needed. We're not going to invest a lot of money, time, or effort into mitigating this risk, all the way up to unacceptable. So if we don't do something, this could be catastrophic, and it is an unacceptable risk for the business to carry or ignore. You will notice that the 4x4, the high of 16, should probably be red or extreme. I've seen it actually where it's almost a floating factor, where some people will decide whether or not it is high or extreme based on the type of risk and the mitigating controls deployed. But I will leave that up to you. It's just coloring a square, entirely up to you. So once we have these risks identified and scored accordingly, we have to monitor and review them, because it's a cyclical process that doesn't stop. So every year or every half year, or if you're a large organization, maybe this is something that you have a dedicated team for. You are looking at the risks, reassessing risks that you thought were mitigated. You're identifying new risks that may require a review. And then if you've identified new risks, how do we mitigate them? Or do we mitigate them based on their score? So there's also a reason to constantly review, is that we have external and internal influences that could fluctuate or affect the score of the risk. For example, we'll go back to the volcano, which, this is probably more likely a risk scenario in Iceland. But if a volcano, which has always been active, suddenly becomes dormant, well, we need to recalculate the risk score, because it's not a certainty that it's going to erupt now. In fact, it's lower. And because of that, should it decide to explode and lava come and wipe out our data center, well, that's not going to change. But the likelihood that it's going to happen has just decreased. So therefore, our score has decreased accordingly. And this happens all the time when you deploy new technical controls, whether it's a firewall or a new architecture. It is a living, breathing score that needs constant monitoring, because it's going to go up and go down based on what happens in the world and in your organization. Now, this entire process is really called risk management. So we are identifying those risks, we are analyzing them and assessing them. Then we decide if we are going to mitigate them, and it's not a guarantee that you are always going to mitigate your risks. Sometimes you will accept the risks, or you will bring the risk to your organization leaders and they'll say, we accept this risk. If you are at that point, make sure you get it in writing, because you've identified the risk, you've brought it to the executive team, they have accepted it, and you are tracking that they have accepted it. So that's not necessarily your get out of jail free card, but something you can refer to if something doesn't go the way that the business thought it would. And then again, risk monitoring and review. We're going to constantly review, or at least frequently review, our risk scores to see what has increased, what's a bigger risk than before, what's no longer as large a risk. And we are going to make sure that this is reported and understood by the executive team, so they know what their overall risk impact is. And if you come from financial services, this is something that you are probably familiar with from a financial and business operational, business continuity side of things. Financial services and even insurance companies have been doing this for a number of years outside of cybersecurity, because it makes sense to understand what adverse things could cause the business to stop being operational. And businesses exist to, one, provide products or services, and two, make money. So anything that jeopardizes either of those two things are risks that need to be tracked. And just like cybersecurity, that's yet another thing that could adversely affect those two areas. So with risk management behind us, or at least put off to the side, as you'll see in a minute, we're going to talk about vulnerability handling and disclosures. So vulnerability handling is how we handle any vulnerabilities that are detected, that are brought to us, that we believe we have resolved. And NIS2 has broken out this really 4 specific areas that we need to focus on. And they're in this colorful chart here. So risk assessment and management, which we have just talked about. So we're conducting those risk assessments and identifying vulnerabilities in systems and software. If you look on the far right side, incident response plans, well, this is something that we talked about in our last session, because we need to have plans in place, so policies that dictate how we handle incidents. The 2 new ones, however, are this concept of timely disclosure and then collaboration, with computer security incident response teams, or CSIRTs. So from a timely disclosure perspective and a collaboration perspective, this might be something that you are not doing now or have not been required to do, but something that even if NIS2 was not something that we were looking at, it's something that every organization needs to start thinking about. So I'll bring you to the actual language of NIS2, and I'm going to warn you now, it seems scary when we read it. So essential or important entities must submit early warning within 24 hours, followed by an incident notification. Then they are required to release information within 72 hours of becoming aware of an incident. And then a final report has to be submitted no later than 1 month after the incident notification. So that may be very scary and having you think, okay, now I have to release anytime an incident happens. I have to let the government know within 24 hours? Do I have to let a CSIRT know within 24 hours? Do I have to let my customers know within 24 hours? These are all fantastic questions for your legal counsel, because they're, depending on what country you are operating in within the European Union, there are different requirements for disclosure that supersede what NIS2 requires. And they have language within NIS2 that states they will not overwrite or negate local disclosure requirements for vulnerabilities. So please, please, please check with your legal counsel, check with your DPO, and see which countries you operate in and the disclosure requirements for those regions. Because I am not a lawyer, I just watch a lot of legal shows on TV, and that apparently does not qualify me to provide legal advice, so I'm told. The CSIRT organizations, so this is something that has been around for a number of years, and it is a one person or a group of people that have created a mostly volunteer organization that handles incoming reports of breaches or incidents, provide guidance to those companies that are experiencing these, and then facilitate working with the various government entities that need to know about what is happening. So this is the list of CSIRTs. As you can see, there are 581 teams in the European Union, very, very well represented. And I know a number of people that have worked on CSIRTs around the world. They're some of the most friendly and helpful people, and they volunteer or are a part of these CSIRTs because they want to help people that don't have the cycles or the technical knowledge to report, discover, mitigate vulnerabilities and threats. So I strongly suggest you get in contact with your local CSIRT for your industry, if it's an industry-specific CSIRT, and make sure that as part of your incident response and incident handling plan, you have their contact information so that you can bring them into the fold to help should you need it. Now, the final thing that we are going to discuss here is third-party risk management. And this is both a fun topic for CISOs and a eye-rolling, I can't believe they're making me do this topic for a lot of CISOs and organizations. So what is third-party risk management? So we are validating that the partner or the customer or the vendor that we're dealing with has a security program that either meets or exceeds with our security requirements. So this is part of the supply chain requirement. We want to make sure that we are not introducing any threats or risks or vulnerabilities to our customers, to our partners, by working with a partner that is not taking security seriously. It is a repeatable set of requirements that we can measure each partner with. So it's not a just a phone conversation and hoping that, oh, you have a firewall? Okay, that's good enough for us. That is likely not good enough for any organization. And then you also want proof of regular external testing and validation of the program. Just because someone says that their security program is, absolutely perfect, they've never had a breach, can you really risk the livelihood of your business and your customers interacting with your company on someone's word and a handshake? Not in this day and age, unfortunately. So third-party risk management, it is not a vulnerability scan on a partner's website. So there are a number of tools out there that provide, you'll hear it called attack surface management. Gartner calls it a number of different things depending on the quarter, but a vulnerability scan of a partner's website is not a clear indicator that they have taken security seriously. It just means that they've secured their website or haven't secured their website. It tells you nothing about how they handle incidents. It tells you nothing about how they've been audited independently. It's just a vulnerability scan of their website. That's all it is. So it's also not a custom 10,000 row questionnaire. I'm sure some of you are laughing because you've been on the receiving end of one of these. I tend to get, I think, 1 or 2 every couple of weeks now, where they want to know everything from how you do background checks on individuals, to your financial stability as an organization, to how often you update your firewalls, to your vulnerability results, to all of the ongoing discovered vulnerabilities that you're working on and when you are going to get them resolved. I am a firm believer in only asking for information that I'm going to do something with. Just having an information that, or just having a list of responses to 10,000 questions that is just going to sit in a database somewhere is, well, one, it's probably negligent on the part of that partner for collecting and storing that information. And you as a company are not required to give that much information. So what you want to really provide is assurances that you are safe and secure. And a lot of times you will see people provide a SOC 2 type 2 report. You'll see ISO certification. And a lot of the time, if you hold up your ISO 27001 certification, that will get rid of half of the questions, if not more. If it doesn't, and you're just copying and pasting from the ISO report, then you're wasting your time and they're wasting your time. So don't be afraid to push back. It's because just having a spreadsheet does not show the company that the integration is going to be safe and secure between your company and their company. You're just airing your dirty laundry, and they have a record of it now. So third-party risk management steps that you need to really be aware of when you're creating your own questionnaire. Define criteria that are important to you, your business, and your customers. So if they handle customer data, if they handle credit card information, if they interact with your customers in any way, make sure that how they are doing that is acceptable in your eyes with their mitigating controls and their processes. So if you have a meaningful list of questions that you can send to your clients or to your partners, you can get usually what you need in order to certify them or provide a checkbox at least that they are a responsible partner or vendor to do business with. I will typically send a 10-question questionnaire asking them, the first question is, do you have a security program? Do you have someone that is in charge of security? If they say no for the first 2, they probably don't need to fill out the rest of the questionnaire, because I have a lot of concerns and I'm going to follow up with a phone call to ask why they do not have these things and why they believe their organization should not be safe and secure. Because I'm going to tell them that my company requires them to be safe and secure, or to have some sort of security program in place should something bad happen, because I do not want to be held responsible for their negligence. And if they will let you, and it's not a guarantee, if you can conduct regular assessments of that vendor, whether it be vulnerability scanning or penetration testing, or even reviewing the results of their independent IT risk assessments, you will get a better sense of how their business operates and if they are holding the tenets of security that you care about. So you should also be reviewing these on a regular basis. So for partners that deal with customer data or sensitive data or have a very high risk rating in your mind or based on your calculation, you may want to review them on a quarterly basis because their integration or the services they provide are that important. So you need to really decide. I've done risk assessments for companies where their partner prints business cards. Okay, well, do they touch a lot of sensitive information? Not really. Is personal data stored? No, they're printing business cards on demand. So I probably don't need to assess them quarterly for the risks. I can probably put them on a much longer cadence, like maybe every year or every 2 years, depending on how much the business relies on that company. So with that, like last time, we have more manageable tasks. It might feel like too much to handle over the next 30 days, but like I said last time, you want to be able to get support from your executive team to push this project forward. You really should block off 1 hour per day over the next 30 days to start working on these different areas. Really hold yourself accountable to get as much of the 30-day tasks complete or started as possible. Again, you don't have to finish them in the 30 days, but at least get them started. Enlist help from other parts of the organization because many hands make light work, as the adage says, and work with your partners. A lot of organizations have been through this already. Reach out to your partners and see if they can help you along this journey with certain aspects that you may not have time for or may not be comfortable in dealing with. So with that, we'll open the floor up for questions. I will remind you, we still have the last piece of this 3-part webinar series. It is on April 11th at 1 p.m. And we are going to cover some relatively heavy areas, including business continuity, disaster recovery, something that's always top of mind, and then proper incident handling and reporting. So this is not external reporting. This is how we are going to handle incidents that happen within the organization that really it will feed into the overall risk decisions that we make going forward. So with that,
Cool.
Thank you for attending, and I will turn it over to Sibylla.
Yes, I would. Thanks a lot, Andrew. Very interesting, and I think crisply and sharp explained what has to be done in the next 30 days. I will have a short look into the question section. So there's one question. They ask, how do I identify assets within my organization for the risk management or for the risk assessment?
So there are a number of ways. So if you, there's a number of, so let me tell you, there's 2 ways to do this. One is to ask different groups within the organization what applications and what systems they are responsible for or they interact with on a daily basis. Once you get that list, you can then say, okay, well, what type of data is stored within these applications or systems? So if there is sensitive information, if there is, if it's just documents that have no sensitive information, that can affect your overall risk score. And that's an entirely manual way to do it. The larger your organization is, the harder that is going to be. There's a number of tools available that will help identify applications and assets, whether it's passive or active. Passive being a proxy or an asset management system that detects things as they traverse the network or get installed. The active scanning side is you have a tool that is probing every system, getting an asset inventory of every installed application and even data types, and bringing them back to a central location. And then you can prioritize that list. And that asset management platform or asset discovery platform may have that some risk ratings associated with what's detected, but it really depends on the maturity of your organization and the size. If you can do both the questionnaire side and the active scanning side or passive scanning side, you can perform a delta of that information and get a very good sense of the types of assets within your organization.
Okay, very clear. So there's another one. It's about third-party risk management, I think. There's the question, do I have to answer third-party risk management questionnaires I receive from partners, vendors, or customers?
I love pushing back on these questionnaires because I am 90% of the time, I'm not confident that they're doing anything with it. They are just asking for it because they were told that they needed to ask for it. So I do not want to give all of my sensitive information to a partner unless it is absolutely required. So I will push back. At some point, you may get to the point where the company that you're doing business with will not do business with you unless you comply with their requirements. So if you feel scrappy and you feel like you want to push back, I completely encourage that you push back. But as with any negotiation, you have to understand that there needs to be a walk-away point where you're either going to walk away from doing business with those people or you're going to comply and follow their requirements. A great example is Microsoft or Amazon. You are not going to change the way a multi-billion-dollar multinational company performs their third-party risk assessment. So you're just screaming into the void if you think that you're going to be able to push back on those. The smaller the partner, the less important the less impactful their data is and their integration is, the more you can push back on them.
Okay, clear answer. Okay, so there were no more questions raised. But if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us directly with Andrew or via connect@demovo.com. So then we are at the final point of this session. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you enjoyed it like we did. There is a recording available. It will be sent out via email. I hope you have scanned your registration for part 3. And yes, you can follow us either on LinkedIn to be up to date about Demovo and hot topics. And therefore, I wish you a nice afternoon and hopefully we see us 11th of April. Okay, bye-bye.